Tonight's program brings together many community concerns. Our keynote speaker, May-Ronny Zeidman, will be introduced by Peter Mazzei. Peter is a past president of the Sandra Bornstein Holocaust Education Center of Rhode Island, under whom May-Ronny served. Then just before our keynote speaker, RICI founding board member Sy Dill will present to May-Ronny RICI's Sy Dill Mensch of the Year Award for 2021. If you have any questions during this presentation, please use the chat box, and these will be addressed following the keynote speech by May-Ronny. Again, thank you for attending. And now I'll ask Peter to speak.
First, I'd like to thank the RICI organization for its leadership for selecting May-Ronny as the Mensch of the Year. I would also like to thank May-Ronny for selecting me to do the honor of introducing her. I met May-Ronny about 20 years ago. She's quite a lady. My mentor in Rhode Island was Arthur Robbins, who introduced me to IHRA, the Holocaust Education and Resource Center, and thus to May-Ronny. Seems like a long time, 20 years. By the way, IHRA stands for the Sandra Bornstein Holocaust Education and Resource Center of Rhode Island. IHRA for short. However, IHRA also is short for Herculean, which is what May-Ronny managed was a Herculean task for a long time. Being an accountant by profession, and every not-for-profit and also others needs an accountant, especially when they don't have any money. I guess I needed a challenge. For me, it was a perfect fit. As you know, May-Ronny is a native Rhode Islander, has 4 sons, 2 daughters, 6 grandchildren, not a small accomplishment in itself. She started in her 20s as a volunteer for Temple Am David, the American Cancer Society, and the Jewish Federation of Rhode Island. Based on the experience she gained from these activities, she decided to utilize her skills as an employee with a continuing focus on things near and dear to her heart. Your paths may have crossed hers during her working years while she was employed in various capacities. She began her career at the State of Israel Bonds, then moved on to the United Way of Southeastern New England, and from there as the Women's Division Director of the Jewish Federation of Rhode Island. Her final career choice was as Executive Director of the Sandra Bornstein Holocaust Education Center for 16 years before retiring. The center at the time when I started to assist was its informative stages. The usual story for virtually any not-for-profit starting out. Not enough money, very little physical space, not well known in the community, not enough volunteers, and also in IHRA's case, a significantly underpaid executive director. Given this background, May-Ronny started performing miracles to develop an extremely important Jewish organization. The center today reaches thousands of young people yearly, working with Rhode Island teachers to educate about the horrors of the Holocaust, to raise awareness, and hopefully prevent it from happening again. Over the years, she developed a strong board and has successfully embraced and works with Christian organizations to promote Holocaust education. From the days when IHRA's finances were hand to mouth, she was able to retire, knowing that today a well-endowed IHRA will definitely survive and thrive under new leadership. Again, thank you for recognizing her as Mensch of the Year. She has done a lot for the Jewish community and is still continuing, again, in a volunteer capacity to help Rhode Island Coalition for Israel. Once again, thank you very much. And following my introduction, Sy Dill will continue with the presentation.
I am especially grateful to RICI for renaming the Mensch of the Year Award to the Sy Dill Mensch of the Year Award in 2020. My late husband, Sy, was a lifelong lover of the Jewish people and the state of Israel, and a dedicated board member of RICI. May-Ronny, as the executive director of the Sandra Bornstein Holocaust Education Center from 2005 to 2021, under your leadership, the center had many accomplishments. But tonight, RICI wants to recognize and acknowledge in particular your critical role in guiding the board of directors of the center through the necessity of the adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism. Now, May-Ronny, it gives me great pleasure to present this award to you from RICI on behalf of your excellent work. You will be receiving it in person at a reception RICI will hold in the near future. Congratulations to you. And now we all look forward to hearing your presentation on Holocaust education. Where have we been? Where are we going? May-Ronny?
Thank you. Okay. You know, I am more of a storyteller than a speech giver. So I would like all of you listening to think of this as my story, 16 years, my work story. Ready? So listen to my story. But before I start, I have a question for all of you. Why do you think Holocaust education, not accepting Jew hatred, and the preservation and support of the state of Israel needs to be taught? I will try to answer these questions later. But now I need to thank very important people in my life and give you a brief history of Holocaust education, where we've been. I'm extremely grateful and honored to the board of directors and the officers of the Rhode Island Coalition to Israel for naming me this year's Sy Dill Mensch of the Year winner. Thank you so much. I also wish to thank the officers and board of directors of the Sandra Bornstein Holocaust Education Center for their voting to accept the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism. The Bornstein Center adopted this definition in December of 2020 after great consideration. In its simplest form, its core message, accompanied by 11 examples, boils down to 3 statements. First one, Jew hatred comes from both the political left and the political right. 2, that criticism of Israel's policies is not anti-Semitic. And 3, anti-Zionism, that is denial of Israel's right to exist, is anti-Semitism. In Rhode Island, except besides the Bornstein Center, IHRA has been adopted by the Jewish Alliance Greater Rhode Island, the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel, Chabad of West Bay High Center, West Vad Havarim, the Orthodox Board of Rabbis, and the Liaison to Christians United for Israel. The IHRA definition is the most widely accepted definition of Jew hatred, with more and more international entities turning to it every week. This evening, I'm going to discuss Holocaust education, where we've been, where we're going, and what I think would be a brighter future for Holocaust organizations and the Jewish people. Before I begin, however, it's important for everyone to know that my remarks are mine alone. They do not reflect the Bornstein Center or any other Holocaust organization. Where we've been. In 1961, a group of Holocaust survivors met in an English as a second language class in Los Angeles, California. And they decided they wanted people to know their story. That is how the first museum was founded, using their stories, their artifacts, their memories. In the 70s and 80s, more and more Holocaust centers sprung up. Yad Vashem in Israel, which means a place and a name, is Israel's official memorial to the victims of the Holocaust. It is dedicated to preserving the memory of the Jews who were murdered, honoring Jews who fought against their Nazi oppressors, and Gentiles who selflessly aided Jews in need. Yad Vashem also is instrumental in researching the phenomenon of the Holocaust in particular and genocides in general, with the aid of avoiding such events in the future. Yad Vashem was established in 1953. Now, the Rhode Island story. In the early 80s, the Holocaust Center was a committee of the Jewish Community Center. Several years later, members of that committee wanted their own organization. And with the help of Arthur Robbins, Major General Leonard Holland, and Ray Eichenbaum, to mention only a few people, a committee was formed, money was raised, and a place in the JCC was found to house the Rhode Island Holocaust Memorial Museum. The name was later changed to the Holocaust Education and Resource Center of Rhode Island, due to the fact that the center did not meet the standards of being a museum. For several decades, this organization created Holocaust educational programs for the community, created a free lending library and a free VHS collection for any person interested in studying the Holocaust or doing research. The main thrust of her RI was to teach students and teachers about the Holocaust survivors of the Holocaust. Survivors volunteered to tell their personal story, and the center had a core of volunteers who would drive survivors to different schools. During that time, during the late 80s, I was working at the Jewish Federation of Rhode Island, and on any given day, school buses would arrive dropping off middle and high school students to learn lessons of the Holocaust, for people who recounted their personal horrors of the Holocaust and lost many family members and friends. These brave people wanted students and teachers to know what happens to a society when it loses its moral compass. Quite frankly, the center has had major leadership from its officers and board of directors. Each president that I have had the pleasure of working with brought different ideas with them. Carol Sugarman wanted a strategic plan. Peter Meze wanted a sound business plan. Jay Strauss wanted to address Holocaust denial. Judith Jamison wanted strong education. And Judge Newman wanted the financial strength to keep the center strong. The early leaders worked tirelessly to make the Holocaust Education Center strong. I would be terribly remiss if I didn't mention Selma Stansler, Ellie Frank, Myrna Aronson, Arthur Fixler, Arthur Robbins, Gloria Fibish, Ray Eichenbaum, Herta Hoffman, and Jenny Klein, who were the initial backbone of the center. So now I'm going to ask you where you think we're going. Where are we going? I am not sure of the future of Holocaust museums and education centers in the United States, and these are my reasons. One, Holocaust survivors, rescuers, and others who were there will no longer be with us. Two, Holocaust deniers will move right in and say the Holocaust never happened. Three, states and school committees will attempt to combine Holocaust education with any other genocide. The Holocaust was not like any other genocide. What makes the Holocaust different from other genocides? The Holocaust was an industrialized, planned annihilation of a group of persons, people. There was nothing random as to the murder of 6 million Jewish people and perhaps 4 million others. Number 4, people have short memories. And although 70 plus years has passed and 10 million people murdered, people like to say, that was the past. Why can't you just move on? I say the Holocaust was Jew hatred at its worst. Holocaust education must continue in order for the Jewish people and their friends to ensure the mandate of never again. Now I have to give you some ideas about what I see for the future. I'm going to tell you a little story. Many decades ago, the Swiss, who were known for their timepieces, were presented with the digital watch. Swiss watchmakers declined this new timepiece and insisted that the public would prefer analog watches. And within a short space of time, the digital watch had taken over the marketplace. The Swiss were unable to see the future and change their paradigm. What does this have to do with Holocaust education? Very simply, I believe it is time for Holocaust organizations and North American Jews to see into the future and change their paradigm. We must continue to teach about the Holocaust and genocide. However, it is time for Holocaust organizations to change their mission statements to include fighting Jew hatred and supporting the state of Israel. As a people, we are really good at remembering dead Jews. Our children can tell you all the people in countries that wanted to destroy us and how we always prevailed. When I took my then 20-year-old son to Israel, and to the grave of Yonatan Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu's brother, who died at Entebbe, my son said, "What's Entebbe?" If you don't know what Entebbe was, I suggest you Google it. As the event unraveled in Uganda in the 70s, I knew in my heart that only Israelis would rescue these Jews. I recommend North American Jews read Dara Horn's book, People Love Dead Jews, and hear Dr. Ruth Weiss speak on the dark side of Holocaust education. In no way do I think that Holocaust education isn't needed and important. What I do think is that the success of living Jews here and in the state of Israel must be told to anyone and everyone. The March of the Living is an outstanding program that brings high school students for 1 week in Poland to witness the atrocities of the Nazis. And the students are then brought for another week to the state of Israel to celebrate Israel's Independence Day. I cannot impress upon you the difference in the color between Poland and Israel, if only in your mind. I feel that the March of the Living program should be administered at every Holocaust Center by the Holocaust Center, not by other agencies or other programs. It is not administered by the Holocaust Center here in Rhode Island. Israel was founded only after 6 million Jews were murdered, and Israel was one of the primary places in the world that would accept Jews. For 2,000 years, Jews have lived in other countries as guests. For 2,000 years, they were terrorized, murdered, and expelled at that will of that country. In fact, I did some research and I found out that Jews have been expelled from 109 countries since 250 of the Common Era. We deserve our homeland. We must honor and remember the 1.5 million children who never again saw the sun. I also think that Jew hatred is not acceptable behavior in any society. We cannot stop Jew hatred, but we can speak out and let anti-Semites know we are living Jews and will no longer tolerate these acts and remarks. For the last few years, I've been asking myself, what does never again really mean? Does it mean standing in the street holding a candle to remember Jews who were shot in their synagogue or walking down the street? Does it mean that members of the United States Congress can make Jew hatred remarks and not be called out by their peers or the Jewish community? Where are the Philistines, the Pharaohs, the Hitlers, and the rest? They are gone. But my people and Israel are still here, and I will let anyone know that Jew hatred is not acceptable behavior. Holocaust organizations must include fighting Jew hatred and preserving the state of Israel as their mission. Since history has shown that for the most part, only Jews will save Jews. What I would like to see for the Jewish people is that the Association of Holocaust Education accept the IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism, and that all the Holocaust centers across the world accept IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism. But mostly, I would like the Jewish people to tell the stories of Jews protecting Jews and Jews supporting the state of Israel. Thank you. Are there any questions? Or that? You'll be back. Are you familiar with the Holocaust education program's names, not numbers? A little bit, not a lot, but I have read about it. And it should be, because for every face there is a name, not a number. What is the name of the book I mentioned? People Like Dead Jews by Dara Horn. Oh, People Love Dead Jews. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I answered that.
Oh, thank you. Not Dolly Cobb, thank you. Oh, what else? Wait. Oh, I can't.
Yeah, there was some technical problem.
Okay, are there more questions? So, May-Ronny, now that you are tired, how are you going to enjoy your days ahead? I'm probably going to help raise money for RICI. I've already started doing that if I could. I'd like to help South County Hospital. I want to join book clubs. And as my family knows, I'm very busy making socks. What else?
What do you think is the biggest challenge in Rhode Island this area?
What do I think is the biggest challenge in Rhode Island in this area? I think for Jews to stand up and say, no, enough. You cannot do this. The Jewish Lands be doing more. Oh, Levi, where's Les?
School teaching the Holocaust refused to mention Israel.
I don't know about that, but that's something new to me.
That's from both.
That is something new to me. I don't know that they don't mention Israel. So I can't answer it.
Should the Jewish Alliance be doing more to combat anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. Should the Jewish Alliance be doing more to combat anti-Semitism? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we, as a Holocaust Center, should be fighting it also. It's not acceptable.
Please repeat the question before answering.
Okay, thank you. What else?
Right now,
Yeah,
nothing else has come on.
nothing else. Okay.
You might want to repeat the questions in the chat.
If you want to put questions in the chat, I suggest you do it right now. I'm here. Somebody wrote, to be Jewish and alive should not be a miracle. I could not agree more.
Carl Yessi.
Who's Carl Yessi?
Someone who signed it.
And his name is Carl Yessi, who made that statement.
Another one.
What is it?
Holocaust studies. Can you?
Yeah, the Holocaust studies don't conclude with the lessons on Israel. They aren't addressing the new anti-Semitism. This is the biggest problem we face. Well, they have to address Israel, and I don't know that they're not. Perhaps they are. I don't know. It's a problem from the Holocaust Commission, but it has to come from the Holocaust Center. How active is the Alliance working with the Holocaust Center? The Alliance is a very good friend of the Holocaust Center. We're in their building, we meet with their people, they have meetings, we're there. They do everything in their power to accommodate the Holocaust Center when possible.
What are you most?
What are
So
you-
they didn't get approved.
I didn't get a whole thing. Oh, I think this is from a person by the name of Garrett. What are you most what? It's not a complete question. What are you most proud of during my time at HERC? I love the Holocaust Through the Arts program, bringing Holocaust movies, Holocaust plays, Holocaust music to the students of Rhode Island. It's a great program. And along with that program is the art and writing contest. And I have to tell you listeners that the Holocaust Through the Arts Award is probably the most exciting event the agency holds all year. If the fire commissioner walked into the building, he would have to shut it down because people are out in the lobby. There's standing room only. And a lot of the children in our public schools are first-generation Americans. And I have to tell you, to look at the faces of their parents, they're living the American dream. And the artwork and the sculptures are absolutely incredible. So I think Holocaust Through the Arts is probably what I'm most proud of. Holocaust education has not kept up with the loudness of the deniers and anti-Semites. Should every Jew learn to become a bullhorn for Israel? Oh, I thought that's what I said. We have Israel, and we have to defend it, and we have to make sure that it exists. Because as I said, we've been thrown out of 109 countries. We've never been thrown out of Israel. What steps should Jews take to fight back against violent anti-Semites? Keep in mind that the Jews of the Warsaw Ghetto fought back. Could American Jews fight back if it becomes necessary? It's how you want to fight back. I don't see violence as the way to fight back. I see, what did I say? That we get lobbyists who stand up and say, this attack has been taken out on the synagogue, on these people, and we want you to do something about it. We don't approve of it as Jews or friends of Jews. That's what I say. I don't see violence as an answer. But I keep saying, being a bystander is not the way to go. And it's time for us to stand up. We have so much to be proud of.
Your work has been so important. Thank you, Sandra. What can the center do besides teaching in the classroom?
What can the center do besides teaching in the classroom to let others know who we are? I think the new administration and the new board of directors are working on that. I hear that they're doing some very, very interesting programming, lining it up for next year. So look for it. It'll be there.
How to stop people from equating differences with Israel with anti-Semitism? I don't understand it.
Could you rephrase this? How do we stop people from equating differences with Israel with anti-Semitism? I don't understand the question. Could you come back? Anything, anybody else want to? I don't know what that means.
I'm not really exactly sure. If the last question could be rephrased from Diane and Dale,
Oh.
it might be helpful. It's a little unclear. So, if you say something negative about Israel, why is that considered?
It isn't. I told you in the beginning of my speech that anybody has a right to disagree with Israeli politics. That's not anti-Semitic. You don't agree, you don't agree. Why other people want to turn it into something anti-Semitic, I don't understand.
MR, you've come a long way from the Israel Bornstein. Thank you for your service to the community of Holocaust education. You've been blessed by all that you have done. From Rhode Island now. Time American Jews can believe that we need Israel to feel in the world.
Okay, this is an interesting statement. Is it from Ada? It's time American Jews can believe that we need Israel to feel free in the world. Thank you, Ada. Anything else?
Let's see how we're doing. How many people sign off?
Okay. I like this one. This is from my first employer, Harvey. MR, you come a long way from the Israel Bond days. Fondly, Harvey. Thank you, Harvey. Anything else? What do you want me to do now? Jews especially need to be versed in Israel's history. Groups like Jewish Voices for Palestine are stealing the rug from under us. I can't disagree with that statement. The Palestinians do a much better job at PR than the Israelis do. And as for Jewish education, except in perhaps day schools, we're not doing a very, very good job with our kids. And I think we ought to. That's what I'd like to say. What did he say? Core connects. Oh, this is a commercial. Core Connects is hosting a program for Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, with Alice Eichenbaum on Thursday, April 28th at 7 p.m. RSVP to www.coreconnectsrhodi.com. Ada, I'm sorry, Ada's wonderful. I'll get to him. But Alice Eichenbaum is worth hearing. She's an incredible speaker. Do you know if the Alliance or Holocaust Center is doing anything for Yom HaShoah? Yes, there's going to be big programs for Yom HaShoah. It'll be out in the Jewish paper. I don't know if you call the Holocaust Center, Wendy or whoever answers the phone will tell you what it's going to be. Wednesday evening, that's what it says here. Wednesday evening is our Yom HaShoah program. And that came, I guess, from Wendy. A wonderful new director. Anything else? Anything you want to say, Wendy? We are going to have it at the memorial downtown, but due to weather, it looks like it will be moved to Temple Bethel at 7 to 8 p.m. Okay. Thanks, Wendy. Oh, there you are, Wendy. Say what you want to say.
Hi. First, I just want to wish you Mazel Tov and all the best. And forgive me, I didn't expect to be on.
Okay, you're gorgeous. Go ahead.
But you look beautiful. And, you know, I feel honored to be sitting in your chair now and to continue this. And like you said, we are planning some exciting programming. Unfortunately, because of COVID, you haven't been able to do what you probably, you know, all of what you would have done the last 2.5 years, but you have continued. You did continue to do as much as you could, especially with online speakers for Holocaust survivors that speak. And we have a lot of exciting things planned for the next year and more, much in part because of the groundwork that you laid. So thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, we are having our Yom HaShoah program. We'll make the official call tomorrow morning. We were really hoping to have it at the memorial, but it looks like it will have to be moved to Temple Bethel. But that will go out in email blasts tomorrow, and it's from 7 to 8 on Wednesday evening. And all of our survivors will be speaking. Just they will be not telling their stories, but giving just a few lines on their hopes for the future.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Mr. Tech, what do you do now? Oh, wait a minute, here we go. Friends, you know this one. Friends of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, will be Zooming services for Yom HaShoah, Yom HaTzmaut, and Yom HaZikaron by members of the IDF. And that's from Carl yesterday. Okay. So there's a lot going on and you can all be part of it. I do suggest you read Dara Horn's book. It's eye-opening. I'm saying good night and thank you for joining us. This has been my pleasure and an honor, and I thank you all. Thank you, Ken Schneider, for thanking me for my work. I went to work, it wasn't work. It was a wonderful opportunity. It gives you a perspective on life when you read some of the things you read. So be grateful, no matter whatever situation you're in, it's probably a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, May-Ronny. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
May-Ronny,
Yes,
you were very informative and it inspires you to want to be involved very much with the Jewish people.
thank you. I want you to. It's important.
It's important to me
We've been
because
quiet.
God's chosen people and I want to serve him by serving you.
Thank you. We've been quiet long enough.
That's right.